Hi, hello, welcome to TLDW, a recap show where I discuss the season of Drag Race that you didn't watch. Today we are going to be talking about Drag Race Mexico Season 1. This will be a much more concise video series where we talk about the season as a whole, discuss the winners, the plot lines, the runways, and hopefully make it a little easier for you to digest if you haven't already watched the season. The pilot season of Drag Race Mexico I found quite entertaining. It's got a star-studded cast, a great set of judges, and overall I think it takes its own unique twist on the Drag Race formula. This franchise introduces us to our first duo set of hosts. Technically, Drag Race Thailand was hosted by Pangina and Art in its first two seasons. However, they didn't typically walk the runway together and alternate between presentation of challenges. In this season, our main host, Lolita Banana, one of the top four from Drag Race France Season 1, and Valentina, the breakout star and fan favorite of Season 9 of regular Drag Race, as well as All Stars 4, are the co-hosts. They take turns from week to week, not only doing the video messages, but also walking the runway, deliberating the challenges, and determining who will go home and making those announcements. The recurring male judge is Oscar Madrazo. This man makes a few out-of-pocket statements throughout the season, has a few pieces of inconsistent judgment, and very clearly rubs some of the cast wrong. I think he's got a good rapport with Lolita and Valentina, but it takes him a minute to find his footing. The prize for Drag Race Mexico is the standard ABH cosmetics, as well as 550,000 pesos, which is about 30,000 USD. And one thing that is unique about this season is that the camera quality is absolutely next level. Drag Race Mexico is kind of a unique franchise in the world of Drag Race because before it started airing, there was a local drag show that was aired on YouTube called La Mas Draga. A lot of the cast members from both season 1 and 2 are pulls from La Mas Draga. If you want to make a loose comparison, it's sort of like how the Boulet brothers had their Dragula bar show. Imagine if that was recorded and aired week to week, and then Dragula came around. It's kind of a bad comparison because Drag Race didn't produce La Mas Draga. Our cast members are Pixie, who describes herself as a fusion of a villain from Batman's Gotham City and a super baroque femme fatale. Serena Morena, who has been on Drag Race UK vs. the World Season 3, she says that she is inspired by Sailor Moon and that's why she chose the name Serena. She walks in saying, "My pussy trembles," and she fakes an orgasm. She has a lot of personality and is always smiling through everything that comes her way, even when a situation is not so strong. Next in the room is Margaret E. Ya. She's a former runner-up of La Mas Draga Season 1, so she has quite a big name running behind her. Next in the room is Vermelia Noir, who struggles to get into that workroom, and she does a lot through the next few episodes. She's accused in the finale of doing cultural appropriation several times, and now going back into the beginning of the season, I can absolutely see it. Next in the room is Regina Voce. She was previously on Queen of the Universe, and Valentina quite literally remembers this at the midpoint of the season and starts to introduce her as Regina Voce, Queen of the Universe. Next is Miss Vallarta. Ooh, she is, I want this recap series to be as free from my own personal bias as possible, but she is giving Antonina Nutshell down. Next in the room is Lady Quero, saying, "Yes, I am a whore." She says that she does stand up regularly in her acts. Next in the room is Argenis, and she started rubbing the girls wrong pretty much right away. Her trajectory through the competition is interesting because she does quite well, but there's a point where the judges very distinctly start to get bored of her, to the point that she comments on it. Next in the room is, spoiler alert, the winner of the season, Christian Peralta. She is a pansexual, this is important, and she is married to a woman and has a child. And this is a really big storyline for her, talking very consistently about her family, about missing her wife, about missing her kid and wanting to get the money and the prize for them. This, I think, is the very first winner with a child since Tyra of Season 2 of Mainline Drag Race. Next in the room is Galavaro, who some of you may know from Drag Race Global All-Stars. She's looking like Hamburglar in this intro. Ooh. She was 7th place on season 2 of La Mas Draga, and she and Pixie had a thing at one point, but Gala left Pixie for another man. And having seen some of Pixie's OnlyFans, I don't know why she left. And last in the room is Matraka, who has this unshakable confidence. Valentina and Lolita introduce themselves as this season's hosts, and this is the first time for a Drag Race franchise. Never before has there been a complete duo host role where both of them alternate week to week with the responsibilities of the typical Drag Race host. And I think this format works well for the two of them. Lolita and Valentina, much like Brooke and Nikki and Rita, have gone through the process of Drag Race. For Lolita as well as Valentina, their first runs were not the best. They were received well by the fans, but the show didn't treat them as kindly. And so they have an extreme amount of empathy for these contestants as they move forward in the competition. No matter what anyone says, in my personal annotation, I think that Valentina was a great judge, even if maybe she messed up a couple times here and there on the Spanish and the references. They announced the very first photo shoot, which is to pose as piñatas. It's at this point that Galavaro's testicle pops out of her underwear, and this becomes a talking point for the rest of the season. Galavaro's testicle gets more conversational time than Vermelia Noir had on the entire season. Margaretia is called as the winner of the very first mini challenge, and the maxi is to present a look that shows off their hometowns. Miss Vallarta comes out dressed as a seahorse statue of Puerto Vallarta. Reina Voce is representing the Angel of Independence. Serena Morena is representing the San Marcos National Fair. Christian Peralta does a fantastic reveal which snags her the win, and she is representing San Pedro. Margaret Illa is representing the city of Mexico and uses this time for a political message, sharing that the city smells like poop. I think that drag should always be political when it can, but it can at least look good, and that is a critique that she gets. Galavaro is representing Michoacan as a monarch butterfly reserve. Vermelia Noir is a doll, but does not say any more about what that doll is or where it represents. Argenis is representing Chihuahua and wanted to emphasize the Tarahumara indigenous group. Matraca is representing Leon as a bull dance. And Pixie Pixie comes out in a fantasy of Mexico City, specifically the Garibaldi Square. Lady Quero is presenting a bride, but again does not say where that bride is coming from or why she represents her until the critiques. For those critiques, Miss Vallarta is called low because they got lost in the look. Christian is called as high and given extremely good critiques. Margaret is called as low, and they said they don't want to see poo on their Mexico, but they respect the art. Vermelia Noir is called as low, and they said she didn't give a wow factor, while Matraca and Lady Quero are called as the other high placers. Lady Quero giving an emotional story about her dress and why it matters to her. The winner is then called as Christian, which I think was totally deserved. I think she blew it out of the water, and it sets her up very early as a main player. And the very first lip sync of the season is a pretty underwhelming one. It's between Miss Vallarta and Vermelia Noir, who both flub not only the entire performance, but also don't really know the words. It becomes such a plot point that Valentina says that it is not to the level that Drag Race Mexico will expect. But regardless, they're both going to get a second chance. This season has 3 double saves loaded into the barrel and uses it very early for this lip sync, which I think was a mistake because both of these contestants don't go on to make phenomenal splashes in the competition, and I think this first double save could have been utilized later on for a significantly better lip sync. Episode 2 is My Drag Quinceañera, where the girls are pretty unamused by this double save. Lolita tells the girls that they should not be feeling good about their time here right now because that first lip sync was freaking boring and that it better not happen again. She promptly introduces Valentina, who's standing in front of a quinceañera party backdrop. And all of these supplies will be the source of materials that they'll use for their very first design challenge, which will be unconventional. In my opinion, an unconventional runway is always something that should start out a season. I'm glad that they put it right after the Show Us Your Hometown runways because this allows them to show off their unique points of view in drag, how they like to present themselves, and allows them to manifest their vision through tools provided. Some girls understand the assignment, and some really miss the mark. Serena is called low for her silhouette and proportions of the balloons of her dress. Argenis is called as high and does eventually win the challenge. Miss Vallarta is called low, and Valentina was not happy about the pink makeup on the monochrome look, and Lolita hated the bodysuit underneath the look. Vermelia is also called as low. I think they're pretty bored of her at this point. Christian Peralta is called as high, and I as a viewer was thinking she was gonna snag another win. They liked the sweetness of her look but wanted it to be bolder. And Margaret Iya is called as high because they thought that she took a risk from the previous week. What I appreciate about this season is that for the first few episodes, they reference the prior critiques. Hey, we told you to do this and you grew from it. And they reward that. I wish that regular Drag Race would do this all the time, but that would sabotage the undercurrent of production that they're trying to maintain. Argenis is called as the winner of the challenge, and honestly I don't think a lot of the girls did spectacularly, so I get why she won. And the bottom two are Miss Vallarta and Serena Morena. Miss Vallarta starts the lip sync doing the Ginny Lemon where she walks out of the stage, and I thought she was done and she was giving up over being in the bottom twice in a row, but she ends up coming back. This was a pretty atrocious lip sync, and at the end of it, Miss Vallarta is told to sashay away, and Serena is called safe. Episode 3 is called Drag Businesses. Valentina announces the mini challenge, which they're going to get in pairs. What they'll do here is eat as many tacos as possible at the finest Drag Race Mexican food eatery, Taco Bella. Ooh, this was a crazy one. I don't love the eating challenges. I cringe thinking all the way back to Chicken or What from season 2. Anytime they make these girls speed eat something, it makes my stomach churn. The twist of this is that it's the hand challenge. One girl will be behind the other and will be picking up the tacos and scooping them in her partner's mouth. And the partner that eats the most will be the winner of that mini challenge. Imagine being the girl that had to eat all the tacos while your partner had to eat nothing, your breath smelling like onions and meat all day long while your partner is just stomach growling until lunch. This sounds awful. Vermelia tries to work with Serena but is pushed out of the way and told that she's not convenient as a pairing. I think Serena did not want to doom herself to be in the bottom. After some 5-minute quick drag, they then have 90 seconds to eat as many tacos as possible. And it is here that we are introduced to our beautiful, gorgeous, beefy, sexy, handsome pit crew men. Vermelia and Regina win that mini challenge, which is kind of crazy because I was not expecting them to do that well. The maxi is then called as something that will merge drag and commerce. It's a non-branding advertisement challenge, similar to things they've done in Drag Race Italia Season 1. Or Drag Race Belgique, where they've got products they'll need to pitch as an advertisement, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with them as drag queens or their personal branding. It just has to be funny and entertaining. The prompts are funeral home, travel agency, nail salon, mechanics, and a taco stand. Matraca and Pixie are together and they choose to have funeral home. They worked pretty well and in tandem, but it wasn't entirely humorous. Argenis and Christian choose the travel agency because they knew that Gala and Margaret wanted it. It was all about this scandalous, sexy airline for women who hadn't been touched by their husbands. They had scrote-scented airbags that you could breathe into. And Argenis pushed herself so far outside of her box in a way that I wasn't expecting. Serena and Quero choose the mechanic advertisement. They use a lot of brilliant wordplay like lubricant and fluids and riding full throttle, balancing and highlighting how homoerotic working on cars can be. Regina and Vermelia choose the taco stand, where Regina was wearing this crazy Adrienne Bailon hair from the Cheetah Girls too. They had this dildo packet where they were squeezing sauce from. I personally did not understand this advertisement, and they were even criticized for being too vulgar. But Regina is called as the winner of the Maxi Challenge, which was odd to me as a viewer. And Gala and Margaret are left with the nail salon. They decide to create these trashy characters that are basically riding, humping, and rubbing on the pit crew boys for the entirety of their skit. I think a lot of these queens were so feral for these hot boys that they forgot the perspective of the challenge. The runway category is A Night of 1000 Maria Felix, a prominent Mexican actress, and they do this cool effect on the runway where everyone comes out in black and white. And as they walk the runway, their outfits are shown in color. So they can really do whatever they want with these. In a night of 1,000 blanks, especially when it's someone that I don't know, I love when Drag Race puts the source material next to whatever it is that the queens are referencing. And there were some knockout looks from this, including Regina Voce, as well as, in my opinion, Christian Peralta. Some of the girls like Serena Morena and Lady Quero, who I wasn't expecting to deliver such high levels of puss, turned it out. But someone who I was expecting a lot from was Matraca, who didn't quite do the look, and when she's called out for it during critiques, specifically says that she didn't want to wear something related to Maria, rather she wanted something that had her roots. Valentina was furious about this, but didn't put her in the bottom. After critiques, Regina is called as the winner of the challenge, despite their commercial being heavily criticized. It seemed like they were very focused on giving her the win based solely on her runway presentation and how much of a knockout it was. And the bottom two this week are Vermelia and Serena. And their lip sync song is Ecstasis. And unfortunately, Vermelia did not know the lyrics again. So despite Serena Morena being a very slow stripper, she wins the lip sync and Vermelia is out. Episode 4 is called Dragapulco Shore the Rusical. It's essentially a parody on the Mexican version of Jersey Shore. There's a storyline set up at the beginning of the episode by Christian Peralta, who asks the room, "Who dances?" And Pixie says, "I like to dance." To which Christian says, "I didn't ask if you like to dance. We're in the major leagues. Who knows how to dance?" And I think this comes back to bite Pixie in the butt later. The mini challenge is the library, which is very early and soon. I always prefer the library challenge to be roped in with Snatch Game, but that's not what they did here. The sexy pit crew boys bring in a bunch of different classes, and for whatever reason, the edit retains all the girls reading the absolute dog shit out of Argenis. She pretty much gets the entire segment of reading, and she looks disappointed more and more as the girls are reading her. This will become a storyline later. It was like they all had bazookas ready of mean things to say and kept lobbing them directly in Argenis' direction. I'm not sure if there were no other funny jokes or if because this actually produced something later, that's why they kept it, but it was odd that very few girls were shown getting read and the majority of the reads were only for Argenis. The Rusical was quite fun. Regina, Gala, and Christian pretty much dominated the entire thing. They acted like they had been on a scripted TV show for a decade. In my opinion, this could have been a top 6 Rusical. There were a lot of ensemble parts that didn't quite need to be represented by drag queens, and I think it would have been stronger later in the season. That being said, Regina's vocals were incredible. And the runway category this week is called Gold. There were some fantastic looks for this category and a lot of similar religious themes across the board. After critiques, Christian wins the Maxi Challenge, even though I think this could have gone to Regina this week. And it seemed like they were heavily swayed by Christian's prosthetics as the reason why she won this week. Pixie is called as the bottom, which to me was a little crazy because she had one of the best looks on the runway and her role was small. Even if she wasn't technically perfect in the dancing, she had almost no material to riff off of. And Argenis is called as the other bottom. The judges were not impressed by Serena, and I was surprised that she scooted through to another challenge, because the judges were not happy with her performance with Argenis in the Rusical. The lip sync song is called Mio, and Argenis is called as the winner, which some of the girls seem not so happy about. The following week, Christian and Regina are set up as the two who are going to be at each other's throats. And this is a storyline that will be pursued until the very end of the season. Episode 5 is called Girl Band. The mini challenge this week is to drag up some shoes and do a little dance, while the sexy pit crew boys dance along the side and one of them DJs. The winners of the mini challenge are called as Argenis and Matraca, who can choose the members of their girl band. And it's this week that Matraca has her birthday, where they even bring in a cake for her. I love that the international seasons celebrate birthdays on camera, because we know that so many of the Ru girls have their birthdays at Drag Race, but don't often get celebrated. And the two groups have to sing a song called Así Soy Yo. Group 1 is called Las Palanquetas. I'm confused about the structure of this challenge because only Group 1 incorporates the Pit Crew boys, and they have a much grander set. And can I say, the beat was freaking weird on this song. It was very garage band, free metronome beats to vibe to. And the line distribution was a bit bizarre. It is 3 queens, bridge, 1 queen. Typically in Drag Race, we see 2 queens, bridge, 2 queens. And Group 2 is called Las Mexi Mamis, where they only have themselves a very minimal set and knock this challenge out of the park. And the runway category is Mexican flowers, which in Drag Race France Season 1, they also had a floral runway, which Lolita participated in. And Valentina is someone who I think of as a very floral type of queen. So this was a great runway category to be presented in front of them. Margaret is presenting a pre-Hispanic god called Xochipilli. Galavaro is representing the orchid and doing a Frida Kahlo fantasy. Regina Voce doesn't say what she is representing, but she's got red monarch butterflies on her dress. Argenis is a cactus from Chihuahua, and I thought this was one of the most stunning looks on the runway. Serena Morena is wearing an Alcatraz lily. Matraca is doing an homage to Mexican shamans and wants to uplift healing plants of Mexican people, so she presents a peyote trip. Lady Quero is representing an orchid, and Christian Peralta is representing a dahlia. She even had LEDs in her skirt. For the critiques, the girls are all judged individually, which I think they should have been judged as groups. Gala is told that they hesitated at some points in the dance. Argenis is told that she is in her head way too much. Serena is told that the others outshined her and she fell behind, which I think is a complete load of BS. But what they did say that I agreed with is that her style was lacking. Matraca is called as high and they loved her look. And Lady Quero, they said she didn't quite do enough. They also told her that it looked like her dress was lent to her by Vermelia. So hateful. After critiques, Galavaro is called as the winner of the challenge, which to me it felt like they were itching to give her a win, and they wanted to establish her as a front runner, even though her entire group should have been the bottoms. And then something strange happens. As Valentina is calling Matraca as safe, Lolita taps her on the shoulder, busts out a fan, the two of them talk for a moment, and they call Matraca as the second winner of the challenge. Galavaro in a confessional says that she only won because it's her birthday, that peyote is not even a flower and you have to study taxonomy before coming to Drag Race. And Serena Morena and Argenis are called as the bottom 2. Argenis says in confessional that she doesn't think the judges like her anymore, which always sucks to hear a queen feel that way. The lip sync song is called Amor Prohibido by Selena. Selena is what Diana Ross is to Drag Race. You do not mess around when this girly is the lip sync song. You present it flawlessly and you do the damn thing, but you don't do stunts and be crazy. Both of them were working their pusses out, but at one point, Serena starts to lift up her skirt, and I think that is the moment that she lost, because she wasn't taking the lip sync as seriously as she could have. Serena is called as the one who will sashay away, leaving Argenis to stay. And a personal favorite moment from this episode to me was Valentina starts to say, if you can't love yourself, and she turns to the guest judge and says, right, Bogue? This woman then says, nobody will love you. And Lolita's face looked like she fully thought, what the f***? Episode 6 is the Snatch game. The episode starts with Galavaro saying that Serena isn't a good drag queen, but is a good person, and I laughed so hard. It was so catty for no reason. The girls get a video message in complete Spanish from Novima. I always say her name is Novima, it's Norvina, but I can't get it out of my brain like Dovima. Oh, if you don't know that reference, I'm so sorry. You're not brain rotted like me. And the mini challenge is to do some Day of the Dead makeup, but they cannot use a mirror. Valentina comes walking in with this mask. She drops the mask and tells them, I hope you remembered that because this is your inspiration for the makeup. They send them into some makeshift rooms where they have to then do makeup blind. I have a tinfoil hat theory that Regina Voce absolutely had a mirror in that constructed room because her makeup was flawless. There were individual details that you could see, individual brush strokes that would have been so impossible to do without any additional help. But I can't prove the theory. And initially Valentina and Lolita seem a little disappointed by the look. But as the rest of them come out, I think they realize the error of their ways that Regina was the only one who worked her puss out. Regina is the winner of that mini challenge, and they get to push in by going straight to the Snatch game, where Regina Voce is playing Walter Mercado, Margaret y Ya is playing Martha de Baile, Galavaro is playing La Llorona. For me, I don't like character studies on Snatch Game. It's a celebrity impersonation challenge at the end of the day. Christian Peralta is someone named Veronica Castro, and she eats up the entire Snatch Game. She gives plenty of time for the girls to volley and respond in some of the dead air, but when they choose to say nothing, she takes up the space and fills in with a joke. Especially at times where Lolita and Valentina seem a little bored with somebody else's answer. She truly was the funniest one in the room in my opinion. Argenis looks like Rosé, but is Gloria Trevi. Matraca is playing Adela Micha, and Lady Quero is playing Luna Gil. The runway category this week is called Supernatural. Argenis is presenting a mariachi look. Someone named Charo Negro, who is, from what I read on Wikipedia, an accomplice of the devil who punishes the greedy. Regina Voce is a queen of the dead. Christian Peralta is playing La Llorona, which I wondered how she felt knowing that La Llorona was just played in the Snatch Game. Galavaro is inspired by a painting called The Dragonfly Woman by Remedios Varo, which is what inspired her name. Lady Quero is also presenting La Llorona, where Matraca is representing an alebrije, which she says have been romanticized lately in media. She says that originally they were scary creatures with exaggerated features, and she wants to preserve Mexican culture in an almost historical way, rather than romanticize it like media has. And Margaret y Ya is presenting a Nual, which is a Mesoamerican belief of this person who can transform themselves into their animal spirit and acts as a guide for them. Regina is the only one sent back to the workroom. Argenis is called as low this week. Christian is called as high because they loved the Snatch Game but didn't think that the runway was giving a fantasy. Galavaro, they said she started strong in the Snatch Game but got less and less funny. Lady Quero is told that her Snatch Game was funny, but her look on the runway was meh. Matraca is called as high. They gave applause to this look and said that it could be a museum piece. It seems like they're really starting to favor her at this point in the competition. They loved the Snatch Game and her timing, but Lolita dissented and said that she thought her Snatch Game was monotonous. And Margaret is called as low, and Valentina specifically says that her Snatch Game was just safe. After deliberation, Christian is called as the winner. I think it could have gone to Matraca, and Margaret is called as safe, leaving the bottom two as Galavaro and Argenis. They lip sync to a song called Abranse Perras. If you watch anything after this video, watch this lip sync, it's so good. Because Galavaro takes off the bald cap that she's wearing and has a wig underneath it. This was Roxy Andrews' level of excitement for me, and both her and Argenis worked it out so fiercely they both should have been safe. Through tears, they're eliminated, and Lolita quite literally looks like she wants to die from her sadness. Episode 7 moves to Mexican telenovelas, where the girls first have to act in a maxi challenge where they'll be soap opera villains who are recovering from their villainy. And on the runway, they'll present 3 looks that all share a story about who they are as a telenovela star, starting out as a young ingenue who becomes a villain and becomes the devil of the world. The acting challenge is quite funny to me, but the judges were less than impressed by it. And it's during this workroom time that Regina reveals that she does tarot. She does a reading for Margaret and specifically draws the death card, which she says doesn't always mean bad things, but that there will be radical change coming in her future. It's kind of funny because Margaret goes home this week. And Lady Quero asks an interesting question if she'll ever make peace with herself. The card that is drawn says that she will, but this story doesn't go anywhere until the following week. On the runway, the 3 categories are Young Girl in Her Beginnings, Lady of the House, and Damn Villain. Margaret y Ya is a poor girl who sells what she knits. Her character then goes viral on social media and becomes an insufferable influencer. But later in life, she has no followers or friends, and she just has her jewels. Matraca is a toothless woman full of ambition, and she randomly wins the lottery one day. Very Charlie and the Chocolate Factory tea. Since winning the lottery, she has enough money to buy everything, including fancy dresses. Over time, she's been won over by the greed of money, and becomes this bitter old lady, but learns that she has a heart and she wants to redeem herself. Lady Keto is an orphan girl who wants to run away to find her real parents. As she gets older, she gets married, and at her wedding night, she finds out that her husband dies via a crumpled piece of paper that quite literally says dead on it. Like the freaking black spot. As time passes, she's turned into a bitter old witch, and she judges everyone because they're sinners. It literally makes no sense at all. Christian Peralta wants to be a star as a child, but people are hateful towards her and she becomes bitter. As she gets older, she has surgery so that her self-esteem can be higher, and she somehow becomes a millionaire. In her old age, she's become a resentful villain who hates everyone, but she's got a lot of money and a disfigured face. Galavaro was inspired by a story that her mom told her. She's a girl who was abandoned and dreams of becoming a contemporary woman. She wants to be powerful and loaded with money. She falls on the ground in the first part of her performance, and this lends to the rest of her story. As she gets older, she becomes rich and powerful, but she still dresses in bad taste because rich people don't always have good taste. And in her old age, an accident that disfigured her face causes her to have several surgeries. Regina Voce is a girl whose mother left her, and all she has is this earring. She grows up loving fashion and finds out that she's an heiress, and she somehow meets up with her millionaire father. Whack-ass story. She gets the leading role of a soap opera, having 2 kids at some point, but they die somehow, which is never quite explained in her story. And after losing her family, she's heartbroken and hates herself and everyone, and decides to take herself out. Matraka is called as the winner of the challenge despite the judges not feeling like she understood her character very well, but they loved her runways. And Christian and Regina were low-key kind of plucked. They thought this would be their challenge. Margaret and Quero are the bottom 2, and they lip-sync to a song called Quítame esta hombre del corazón. I thought they were both great, but it was kind of a low-key song. Quero is called Safe, sending Margaret home sadly. Episode 8 is called Levi's Runway, where the girls do a mini challenge where they have to dress up as a luchadore. They do photo shoots in this big wrestling set where production has even created glass bottles they can smash on the pit crew, chairs that are breakable, and it was a very fun time, but quite unhinged. When they come back into the workroom, they find out that their challenge is inspired by Levi's branded items. They have to make dresses, specifically ball gowns, from these materials. They can even use the rug as well as the pillows on the couch. It's during this construction time that Lady Keto breaks through and talks about some of the violence that she experienced as a child. This was an extremely emotional moment, and I loved seeing it on Drag Race because the show often shies away from these conversations, specifically of abuse that happens to many queer folks in their childhood. On the runway, the category is Denim Eleganza Extravaganza. The looks wore me out, and I think they wore out the judges too. They were so impressed because when they did the quinceañera costumes, the judges were all understandably disappointed by the lack of design and sewing skills that this group had. But they were so blown away by the fact that these are all hot glue gun girls that they reward them with a celebratory top 2. And no one is going home this week. The lip sync song is Bizochito by Rosalia, which I remember specifically was trending on TikTok around this time. Matraka is called as the winner of the lip sync, and Gala is just safe. The 2 of them were worried that one of them would be high and the other one would go home, but that wasn't the case, of course. Episode 9 is called Spicy Roast, where the girls start out the week with the Puppet Challenge, a cornerstone of Drag Race that has been long forgotten by mainline Drag Race, sadly. Galavaro's testicle is referenced once again as a puppet, getting more screen time, I swear, than Vermelia did. Matraka and Regina are called as the winners of the mini, and they get to determine the order of the Spicy Roast. The order is Galavaro, who plays her dog. Regina talks about being cast for Drag Race Mexico and says that Ru begged her to be on the show and called her the Mexican Jujubee. Matraka uses her time to give a political message, which I think was inspiring. Lady Quero is playing her cousin, Yasumi's Ladies Portuando. Christian talks about her life as a drag queen who is pansexual and has a wife and a kid, and deliver some hilarious comedy. And the runway category is called Picante. The girls all work it out in these amazing red looks. Christian is called as the winner of the challenge, which I think was completely deserved. And the bottom two are called as Kero and Galavaro. They lip sync to a song called De Mi Enamorate, which is a beautiful ballad, and I think they were both extremely compelling. Galavaro is called as the safe contestant, and Lady Kero is now out. Bringing us to episode 10, the Latinas Makeover Challenge. This week, the girls are introduced to 4 cuties, each wearing sashes of their home countries: Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Venezuela. They draw from a button bag to figure out who they'll be paired with. Christian's makeover is low-key a diva, says that he can't shave because of work, refuses to tuck later. I did some dragvestigating and could not figure out what this man did for work and why he was unable to shave. I personally would absolutely require that someone did the type of drag that I did, and if they were unwilling to do so, I would demand that production give me another one. But Christian is a professional, tried and true, and works with this person regardless. And later on, the one person in the room who does not tuck, Galavaro, gives a tucking tutorial to the entire room and shares an absolute bonkers way of tucking. I won't go into the details for monetization purposes, but I have never tucked like this in all of my years of doing drag. And when some of the guys are struggling to get their peonies where they need to go, Gala volunteers herself to help them out. The runway category is Miss Drag Latin America. Gala names her girl Dali Varo. Matraca names her girl Maraca. Rahina names hers Johanna. And Christian names hers Gabby. Christian is called as the winner yet again. Galavaro is called as safe, leaving Matraca and Rahina to lip sync to a song called El Bombon Asesino. Rahina is called first, leaving Matraca as the one who will likely go home, but they decide that it will be a top 4. There is a reunion, which I won't talk much about. There's a mini reading challenge that Margaret Iya absolutely scalped me by saying to Vermelia, "We know you love cultural appropriation. Why didn't you appropriate the gift of learning a song?" And she brings up her distaste for the male judge, Oscar, who had some less than kind things to say to her a couple episodes ago. In the finale, the top 4 must sit down with Lolita and Valentina, have a little conversation with them about their trajectory in the season, and then perform a Thalia song named A Quien La Importa. It's basically an MV challenge. They don't have to write their own lyrics, they're just performing. And the runway is called My Best Drag. Regina and Christian, in my opinion, were dressed for the lip sync song rather than presenting their very best drag. And the top 4 must lip sync to a song called El Me Mintió. This was incredibly emotional. At one point, Regina is ripping apart her bouquet and throwing the roses on the ground. Christian starts to cut up her wig with some scissors, and the two of them give an extremely emotional final performance. At the end of it all, Christian is called as the winner, and I think she had the best track record. It was set up very early that her and Regina were the rivals, and for me, they were the 2 main players of the finale. They were the 2 main players of the last several episodes, with Matraca coming up right behind them. This to me was a fantastic premiere season, much better than some of the others that came before it, like Drag Race Holland Season 1, which was not quite as good, even Belgium, which had its bumps in the road. But Drag Race Mexico was its own special flavor of Drag Race. I liked the way that they presented the runways and the way that Valentina and Lolita bounce off of each other through the season. They complement each other well, no matter what anyone says about Valentina's judging. In my opinion, I found it refreshing from the general rubric. The queens are incredibly talented, but it's not until about episode 5 that the competition starts to launch forward and become the best version of itself. Lolita and Valentina do take a bit to find their footing, but when they do, they soar. And the looks were mind-blowing this season. If you have not watched an international season and want to dip your toes into something, I highly recommend this one. It is a great representation of Latino drag, since mainline Drag Race doesn't do the best at celebrating Latinos on the show. All tea. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you go back and watch this season. Go and check out each one of the podcasts if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts. Thank you for supporting this channel and continuing to allow me to cover my absolute favorite show. I will see y'all on the flip. Hi, hello, welcome to TLDW. What the fuck?